Not too long ago, one of the most powerful posts on the internet got almost zero attention. I'm serious. Elon Musk, the person behind Tesla, SpaceX, and XAI, posted just 4 words that honestly should have stopped the entire financial world in its tracks. They were so simple, so deceptive, but they point to a radical, fundamental shift in how our world works.
Someone asked him what the future economy really runs on, and this was his answer: just mass and energy. Now look, when a guy with his track record of literally turning science fiction into reality says something that's cryptic, you have to sit up and pay attention. It feels like he's telling us exactly where the global economy is going, and almost nobody is connecting the dots.
So what on earth does that actually mean? I mean, on the surface, it sounds completely abstract, right? But here's the thing. If you've been following what's happening in AI, in robotics, and in energy, this idea, it starts to make a shocking amount of sense. So let's break it down right from the beginning.
Okay, first things first, we need to decode this little prophecy. And to do that, we have to look at a pattern that's been hiding in plain sight for over 100 years.
That's right. To really get the future, we have to look back at the history of money itself. Because the way we think about value, the way we think about currency, it has never, ever been permanent. It has always adapted to new economic realities.
To really see this pattern, let's just do a quick run-through. Back in the late 1800s, the world ran on the gold standard. Simple. Your money was directly tied to gold. But then World War I came along and completely shattered that system. So, in 1944, we get the Bretton Woods Agreement, where the US dollar was pegged to gold and every other currency was pegged to the dollar. That worked until 1971, when President Nixon closed the gold window. And to keep the dollar on top, the US made a deal with Saudi Arabia to price all their oil in dollars, creating the petro-dollar system that we are basically still living in today.
So what does all this history tell us? Well, it shows that the system of money isn't set in stone. It's not fixed. Gold worked for an industrial era. The dollar, backed by oil, worked for a globalized energy economy. Each and every time, the currency changed because the fundamental way we create value changed.
And that, right there, leads us to the billion-dollar question, or maybe the trillion-dollar question. What fundamental economic shift is happening right at this very moment that could be powerful enough to trigger the next massive change?
The answer, it turns out, lies in 3 huge converging technological trends that are literally rewriting the rules of economics. Most people are tracking these things one by one, but almost nobody is seeing what happens when they all hit at the same time.
We're talking about intelligence, labor, and energy. The cost of all 3 of these things is just plummeting towards zero. And their convergence? That is the real story here. It's a dynamic that is going to define the next 100 years.
First up, AI. It's making intelligence effectively free. And the speed of this change is it's mind-blowing. The cost of top-tier AI performance, something like GPT-4, is projected to drop 50 times in just 3 years. 50 times! This means cognitive labor, all that thinking, analyzing, coding, is fast approaching zero marginal cost.
Second, you've got robots making physical labor nearly free. A human worker might cost, what, $20 an hour? Well, projections show that by 2032, a humanoid robot like Tesla's Optimus could do the exact same work for just 20 cents an hour. This is poised to completely upend the entire $40 trillion global market for physical labor.
And third, solar power is making energy almost free. I mean, check out this number. Since 1976, the cost of solar modules has dropped by an unbelievable 99.6%. Solar is already cheaper than building new natural gas plants, and the price just keeps on falling.
So, okay, let's put all the pieces together. If AI is handling the thinking, and robots are handling the physical work, and solar is providing all the abundant power, what's left? What is the scarce input? What becomes the bottleneck? Well, it's the raw materials, the mass, and the energy you need to transform them. And that is the absolute core of Musk's statement.
This brings us to the new economic model this whole new reality creates and the incredible, almost unbelievable infrastructure that's already being built to support it.
And this isn't some brand new idea. Nobel Prize winners and brilliant economists have been arguing for a century that real wealth is just energy transforming materials. The basic idea is that the total amount of currency in a system should be determined by the total energy production. It's a really old concept that is suddenly becoming very, very real. And this isn't just some random one-off post. Musk has been super consistent about this vision for years. He said it explicitly. Energy is the true currency. In a post-work world driven by AI,
Energy will be the ultimate equivalent of money.
And it gets crazier. If you look at his companies, you see how perfectly they all slot into this new economic stack. xAI is building the intelligence layer. Tesla's Optimus is the physical labor layer. Tesla Energy is handling the production and storage. And SpaceX, it's building the orbital compute and transport infrastructure. It's one giant, interconnected system, a single, massive flywheel.
To really wrap your head around the scale of this ambition, just look at this number, 1 million. That is how many orbital solar-powered data centers SpaceX has filed paperwork with the FCC for permission to launch. This isn't some theoretical plan on a whiteboard. The paperwork is already in the system.
And here is why space is the ultimate endgame for energy. An orbital solar panel is bathed in constant, unfiltered sunlight. There's no night, there are no clouds, there's no atmosphere getting in the way. Because of this, an identical panel in space generates roughly 13 times more energy than one on the ground. 13 times! It's a complete game changer.
Okay. I know. This all sounds a little bit like science fiction. So let's bring it back down to earth and talk about what this massive shift could actually mean for you, starting with the strongest arguments against this entire idea.
Look, critics rightly point out that energy isn't easily stored or standardized like money is. You can't just stick it in a bank. And maybe most importantly, governments will fight tooth and nail to keep control over currency. But just remember that pattern. Governments didn't voluntarily leave the gold standard. A new economic reality forced them to. And if AI and robotics make everything else free, this transition may not be a choice.
So this brings us to the most important question of all. How can you actually position yourself for this shift? Well, for investors, it suggests that companies dominating low-cost energy production and storage could become the new giants of our economy. For your career, it means skills related to energy, AI, and robotics are going to be absolutely critical. And for geopolitics, it means that nations with tons of sun and wind could become the new Saudi Arabias.
Listen, this transition isn't going to happen overnight. Of course not. The current system has enormous inertia. But all the trend lines are pointing in this one direction. The cost curves are getting steeper, and the infrastructure is being built as we speak. The world's richest person is basically telling us where he thinks it's all going. So the final question really is for you. Will you just watch it happen, or will you position yourself to win from it?